Let me swing to you, Sanya. When the list first came out last week, there were all kinds of comments. All the media picked up on it. And one of the major things that they criticized was the number of people considered to be expired. So after all, we're looking at Nigeria of the future. This is the 21st century. Why do we have so many oldies on that committee, so to speak?
Actually, to put it in the way that Simon Kolawole did in his column last week, he said this is a case of having analog thinking in the digital age.
That's it.
So
that's
please.
it.
Now, as a young man myself, I think I share in that sentiment. But let me say at a very fundamental level that the problems facing this country, they are certainly not new. I will even believe that the problems have been over-diagnosed. So, whether old, young, or middle, the issue is that, are these Nigerians? The answer is yes. Do they understand the issues? If the answer is yes, my worry is, do they understand the issues?
Yes, if the answer is yes.
If the answer is yes. But you see, all the debates about the composition, I don't think anybody has actually been able to say that these people do not have clear perspectives as to what the problems of the country are. The issue is everybody wants to come along. With due respect to the youth who are also clamoring to be members of this thing, I don't think anyone will sit down and expect that one day the thing will just deliver into your hand. It will be delivered. Leadership is something that you really have to work for. So I agree, yes, it's important that you begin to bring, after all, the people that fought for our independence, they were in their 30s, 40s, and then some of them who are still alive today are being recycled. But it then says a lot about even the youth of today, how well they need to pull themselves up by the booby traps to be able to come into the mainstream.
Can we possibly blame the youths for not being there in the forefront of this fight, of this plan to change and enable Nigeria to evolve? Can we possibly blame them?
I don't think the issue is about apportioning blames.
No, look, it's a straightforward question. Is it yes or no? Do you think we can blame them for where we are and what they're not able to do?
Let me answer this question this way. The youths are doing well in the economy. They are doing well in various sectors of the economy as a whole. Why is it now that it's only the politics that they want to be helped? I don't believe that. I do not believe, for instance, if I have a legitimate desire, I go for it. I don't think it makes sense for me to sit down in my house and imagine that this thing will be delivered to my hand.
But we had a gentleman here who was a politician of some political affiliation just a week or two ago who said it's really difficult to break into the senior ranks in politics depending on your age, because there is what might just be a gang up at a certain level where it becomes really difficult to penetrate.
In other words, the youth with their numbers should just sit back.
No, they shouldn't.
And then allow these old men to expire before we now come on board.
Okay. Let me say something before on this issue. Those young men that we now call our founding fathers did not wait for anybody to ask them to take steps to move Nigeria forward.
Because there was nobody.
In what
at
sense?
that time.
At that time.
No, there was somebody.
The owls,
there was
the
somebody.
Macaulays.
What you mean is there was nobody enlightened to their level.
Exactly.
Okay, now the youths today are more enlightened supposedly in a digital age than the elders. Yes. Why don't they create force? Why don't they create capacity enough to make themselves relevant or more relevant in the political, social, and as I said, the economic area? They are doing well.
Yeah, but Tony, let me put it to you that the politics of Nigeria is such that it is extremely difficult for a young man who doesn't have a godfather, who doesn't have pots of money, to actually make a difference.
Madam, can I take it away from him?
Yes.
Because I don't think it is contentious. The youths are exactly what they have turned themselves to be in the circumstances that they find themselves. And I give you a practical example. Any situation you meet, will be defined by your disposition to apply yourself to that situation. If you have a mentality, an attitude that accepts defeat, it goes that way. If you are rebellious, please pardon my word, by nature, you will also be able to make the necessary impact. Talking about the youth, if you consider one of the critical platforms that they have in this country, NANS, National Association of Nigerian Students, and understand the degree of dysfunctionality in the present day NANS, and then understand why it is so, you will clearly, locate the answer to this question within them themselves. Those days, you don't need, when we were in the university, you don't need these godfathers. As a matter of fact, these are the people
you hold in contempt.
I pride myself. I took University of Nigeria to court twice before I graduated. It wasn't just about court. It coalesced into that. It has to do with robust activities that came to that point. I'm talking of southeast of Nigeria. You could have that in Ife, and so on and so forth. But you don't try that. So the point I'm making is that it is gratifying that they have been given an opportunity this time. And listening to some of them who are even delegates, I think that there are prospects, that their own aspects of the national challenge will be better articulated and presented. But I'm not going to buy into the argument that the present political configuration of Nigeria alienates them from. It is because we now have a set of youths who gives award in the name of NANS to the worst governors, for instance, in the country. You have a youth movement that has more than 3 PAs to the president of those administrations. You have a youth body that completely have left what the issues are and pursuing perhaps what they cannot get.
Isn't that
I'm persuaded to believe, sir, that there is never a time, and that's the irony about freedom, if you are, approximating that to be the freedom to have access to political, there's never a time freedom is given free.
Malachy.
Yes, please.
Isn't that a reflection of the society that we live in, where everybody seems to be scrounging around for any tiny bit of crumb that is left by those in position of leadership?
There's no society that I know of where progress is alienated from ideas. It is the ideas that drive those progress. It is immaterial whether you have a Herculean, an uphill challenges to deal with. If the ideas that the youths have decided to accept now does not properly wire them in the direction of constructive interventions, for that long they will be bogged down by the mundane challenges that they have, allowed. If you take this NANS that I mentioned, for instance, there were moments in this country, long before some of us even entered the university, where national issues are not just identified, they are pursued to its logical conclusion, carrying the entire nation.
Exactly.
SAP is one of them. I wasn't in the university when SAP came, but we were inspired. Okay, well, just died. The former NOS president. I had the privilege to contact him before he passed on, because there were people who still believed that the reinvention of the youth movement will start by those who dramatized capacity when they were there. And so, you won't talk about money, because then they hadn't any money. In short, there are just few universities I did not visit in this country in the course of student movement. We were entering lorries. We were jockeying from one campus. In short, people don't know the university that I actually passed on from, except that it has to be reported in the case laws. So I do not want to patronize them. I do not want to take them away from the challenges that they have imposed on them. And it is for that reason that issues that we dealt with before we left, for instance, arbitrary increase in school fees. How dare you? My first case in the university was because Gunwork, a sole administrator, imposed more than 3,000% increase in the tuition fee. So no, this can happen. As a matter of fact, as law students, we had read the University of Nigerian Act and found that as a sole administrator who had disbanded the Senate and done away with the governing council, you can't personally take decisions on finance without collaboration with those other bodies. And that was the basis of the legal action.